shoulder, large and in charge behind me, and it's always great to be on a panel with you. So the U.S. Department of Commerce is the lead agency on a program called SelectUSA. SelectUSA is an interagency working group within the United States government, the federal government, and we promote the promotion of investment, U.S.-focused investment for overseas countries, overseas investors and businesses. We do this really in quite a calculated way. We try to take the emotional aspect out of investing in the United States, and we put the investors in touch with data points so they can make a solid and calculated investment focus. The last thing we want someone to do is invest in the United States and be unhappy with their location and that. So we try to really focus on the data and provide an opportunity for those companies to succeed. So we can talk about more of the programs that SelectUSA has and what we offer as far as assistance. But I'll let Bernhard and Sergio do a small introduction.
Let's go with Bernhard. Yep.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you, Tom, also for hosting this event today. Unlike my counterpart from the United States Embassy, we at the Polish-Canadian Chamber of Commerce have more of a private sector approach and perhaps more of a Poland-centric approach, whereas our embassy, like yours, also has the mandate to attract foreign investment into Canada. Here in Poland, we're a little bit more focused on companies coming over here, although of course we also help, and together with our partners both in the Government of Canada, in the Polish government, the Ministry of Development and Labour and Technology, as well as PAI and our counterparts in Canada, we also help Polish companies to analyze and sometimes take that step into Canada. The distance, of course, between the transatlantic divide between Canada, the United States and Europe, the EU and Poland in particular, is of course still a significant I think, barrier for some smaller companies. On the other hand, the relationship between our countries is very strong. I think I can say that for the United States as well as Canada in general. Over the years, the relationship with Poland has been extremely solid, and it's based not only on a number of historical reasons and cooperation, but also on foreign investment and successful trade relationships that have been going on for the past few decades. So I think that there are a lot of good reasons underlying why we should do business together. Now the challenge with going to North America for Polish companies is of course one of scale and also being able to engage in that very lucrative and big North American market. I think that over the course of this segment and perhaps during the course of the day, we'll try to figure out some of the ways to go about that. I think the presentations that we had just before showed how important it is to be focused in our approach to going to North America. We have to have the resources, the technology, the product, the people, the relationships, but I think we also need to understand how to integrate European products into that big marketplace where it's easy to be anonymous initially, and I think it's important to find the right relationships to build on and to be able to engage in a market that's many, many times larger than ours here in Poland, even arguably larger than in all of the EU. So I think taking all that together, the challenge is to find the right time, the right partners, the right product, the right market, etc., to go into that. In terms of Canada, we have a unique situation thanks to the CETA agreement, or in Polish it's CETA, umowa CETA, and it's a comprehensive economic and trade agreement between Canada and the EU, which is provisionally in force since 2017. And it really facilitates the movement of goods and services and investment and labor, as well as protecting intellectual property rights and other advantages that are either already in force or will be. And I think that really makes the situation easier. It can also be used, arguably, under certain conditions as a stepping stone to the United States and beyond, as Canada has bilateral or multilateral trade treaties with over 50 countries that represent, I think, almost 2 billion people and over $62 trillion in GDP. So I think there's a lot of things to do, a lot of opportunities, but it's important to do things in the right way, and that's what we're here to discuss today.
Okay, we're going to jump back to both of you. Let's jump over to Sergio. Where are you, by the way, Sergio? But tell us a bit about yourself. Case, not everyone knows Case. Tell us a bit about that as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tom, and for the invitation today. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. My name is Sergio Domingues. First and foremost, I'm Managing Director of Georgia's Europe office, which is based here in Munich, Germany. That's where I'm calling you from today. And then my other hat is serving as President of the Council of American States in Europe. For 50 years, CASE has represented the economic development interests of U.S. states with a European representation or representative. And so today, CASE has 17 U.S. member states that have some form of representation here in Europe. And these individuals in these offices serve as direct extensions of their state economic development organizations. So all 50 states have their own organizations that are looking to attract new investment, spur economic activity within their borders, and some of them have actually invested in representation in Europe to engage with investors on the ground. And just last week, SelectUSA in their annual SelectUSA Summit convened all of the economic development organizations through a virtual platform that brought together several thousand prospective investors that are looking at the U.S. market. But here on the ground, let me just say that CASE and the individual states work hand in hand with SelectUSA, with Neil and his team in Warsaw and across Poland, to in essence fly the flag and make and raise awareness of really the benefits and the advantages of the U.S. as an investment market, as a place for a Polish company to consider setting roots, whether it's through a sales or commercial presence, through warehousing, assembly, or even production. So we're at the disposal of these companies. Our services are free of charge, under no obligation to any company that we engage, and most importantly, they're confidential, right? So thank you so much again for the invitation. I look forward to going into some greater detail about CASE, and back to you.
Let me ask two questions to both of the two of you. Neil, first for you, give us a bit of update of how the SelectUSA event was. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. I'm curious to hear a bit about, and I'll give Sergio just kind of time to the question. If we look at Central Europe versus, let's say, Germany. Germany is a huge market, and everyone in the U.S. wants to attract German investment, or French or UK. Is the Central European economies, are they yet on the radar screen of American states or cities for inward investment? If we bring up Germany, everyone jumps, it's quite clear. You bring up Hungary, maybe not everyone does, but I'm curious if, as a group, Central East Europe has hit the radar screen of U.S. cities and states. But Neil, let's go to you first.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Actually, last night the stats came out on the SelectUSA Summit, which was held last week in Washington, D.C. It's a yearly summit, typically lasts about 3 or 4 days. However, because this year it was a virtual summit, they held it over 5 days, so that way all of the speakers had a time to engage with the clients, overseas or in a virtual platform. And it was actually, I will say, the largest SelectUSA summit ever. We had nearly 3,500 attendees. I'm reading from this my note card here because these stats just came out last night, and I didn't have time to memorize them. So nearly 3,500 attendees, 56 state and local economic development offices, and this is really important because, as Sergio mentioned, he's part of CASE, so CASE represents, I think, 17 or 19 state economic development offices that are located in Europe. But there's every state has an economic development office, and almost every major city has an economic development office. So for us to have 56 state and local EDOs, or economic development offices, represented in this online platform, was quite good. This is where companies could engage with the economic development offices in a one-on-one fashion and learn about the benefits and the features of their location, tax benefits, resources, the education level of the people and potential hires, and so forth. The SelectUSA Summit also attracted 70 foreign markets, 3 new markets this year. I think Moldova was the closest new market for us in the SelectUSA program.
That must be Cuba, because we have Moldova. We've got Moldova in the session today. Moldova's a big crowd online right now.
Okay. Well, so there we go. I mean, there's the happy accidents, and this is a good one. I will say this year, the President of the United States, President Biden, opened the summit. He spoke at the summit. We had 8 cabinet officials, and so this shows the breadth of U.S. government help and support for this program. This was, of course, the U.S. Department of Commerce, which is the lead agency, and Secretary Gina Raimondo opened the program itself. We had Secretary of State Blinken. We had the Secretary of Department of Justice. We had the Secretary of Energy. We had the Secretary of Labor. So all of these are important agencies to help really focus the investors' attention on making a sound decision. Again, we want to take the emotional aspect out of an investment and make it a business case. Why should you invest in a certain location? And then, of course, the state levels, I mentioned we had 56 state and local economic development agencies, but we also had 28 state governors that participated in the program itself. And so that really shows you how serious some of these states are in attracting your investment, in providing the information necessary for you to make a sound decision, and really just looking to help you grow your business in an effective way.
Sergio, we'll go over. Sergio, over to you on terms of the Germany versus Central European radar screen issue.
Listen, Germany has always been a key market for us, and it will continue to be, right? But let me just say that Eastern Europe is on our radar screen. We do more and more in Eastern Europe. And let me just say that before this pandemic hit, Neil and I and many other states crisscrossed Poland in a five-day, 5-city roadshow to get the word out. And these were very well-attended events. So there are states that took a week out of their schedules to tour the country, to reach out to the Polish business community, and to inform and raise awareness of what the U.S. has to offer. So, big kudos to Neil and his team, but I could probably count on one hand the SelectUSA representatives that have put together a week-long roadshow. I think it may be Spain and Italy that have enough interest, that have garnered enough interest from the business community to put on a 5-city, 5-day roadshow in their respective markets. So it starts with Poland, and we're making more headway into other markets like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and so on. So we're moving eastward, and I could also say, and Neil could attest to this, some of the larger delegations from previous SelectUSA summits have been from Eastern Europe. I think a year or two ago, Romania had the largest delegation to the SelectUSA summit. we're paying attention to this. And so it's something that will certainly drive our strategy and how we allocate our human and financial resources to engaging folks on the ground.
Great, great, thanks. Neil, and I'm going to come back to you in a second, Bernhard. So, Neil, in terms of beyond the cities and the states and the federal government, there are sometimes physical delegations traveling to Poland, Central Europe from the U.S. Obviously that's not happening this year, but do you see signs that's going to start coming back after the fall, or is that next year? I mean, I'm talking about local businesses coming in from, I don't know, Detroit or from Austin that come and tour 3 or 4 cities for a week or so. Do you see signs of that coming back yet, or is it still going to push back to 2022?
Well, that's actually a great question. Right now, we have in our office in the embassy, we field a lot of questions from both Polish companies looking to go to the United States to conduct business, as well as U.S. companies looking to come to Poland to conduct business. There is a possibility for travel, for business travel. It has to be approved on a case-by-case basis. No pun intended, Sergio. But it has to be approved on a case-by-case basis. And this is something that we work very closely with our consular department on to provide what for a Polish company going to the United States. It's called a non-immigrant exception, and this is, a case-by-case business decision that is made for Polish companies to travel. Now, the U.S. government the embassy here in Poland has also worked with the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs to facilitate a way to. It doesn't streamline, it doesn't speed, so please don't take that into account. But they have worked out a system where if a U.S. company is looking to come to Poland, they can contact the embassy and get assistance in pushing their agenda with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. One thing that I wanted to mention before we get too far away from the SelectUSA program is that we are geographically neutral, so we work with all state and local economic development agencies. Like for instance, Sergio with the state of Georgia, or I was just working last week with the state of Wisconsin on a trade mission, a virtual trade mission that's coming here to Poland. And so we do this completely geographically neutral. There is no cost for our services in helping Polish companies or companies in the region in connecting with the federal government or state and local governments to get the assistance. I also want to mention that while my position is here in Poland, we have offices just like ours in every embassy in the region. So if you're calling in from or dialing in from Hungary or Romania or the Czech Republic or Slovakia, and you need an introduction to the embassy, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. I'll just say my email address online here, which is Neil, Neil, Pickett, Pickett, @trade.gov. So neil.pickett@trade.gov. And you can contact me directly for any inquiry on, the SelectUSA program, if you want to be introduced to another embassy contact in your own market, or so forth. So.
Okay, great. Bernhard, let's jump to Canada in terms of SelectUSA is a big event. Do you guys do anything like that, plan to do something like this? And also tell us about any delegations. Do you see some signs that might be coming back? I'm just curious a bit of how Canada focuses on Central European market like the U.S. is doing.
Thanks, Tom. I think that we don't have a specific event like SelectUSA that I'm aware of. I think we're more selective in our choice of partnering with different regions or in different industries, and we have been, I think, increasingly successful in helping either to organize or to help to facilitate various events for industries or regional groups of business people either coming from Canada or going from Poland to Canada. Now, of course, when COVID came along, that ended. We actually had a trade mission come back from the metallurgical industry just before COVID hit, and it was that they sort of made it in just in time, and that was actually a successful trade mission, and certain relationships have been established and are developing. I think that Canada is a very dispersed country population-wise. As many of you know, it's about 32 times the size of Poland, and has approximately the same population as Poland. So in Canada, it's not so easy to speak of one single concentrated market or area. It's a much more dispersed, geographically dispersed construct. So what we do, as I said, is we try to focus on industries or certain regions in that, and that's what we've been doing and will continue to do. In terms of what we see happening, I think the travel restrictions are still largely in place, but they will be eased from the 1st of July. And I think we'll have to take a wait-and-see attitude as to when people can start traveling normally on business. Hopefully that would happen sometime in the autumn of this year, but we'll have to wait and see.
We're going to keep this as interactive as possible, so I'm going to ask Pavel Piotrushinsky from Nevada to ask a couple of questions.
I have just one. Here. Okay. So first of all, Neil, congratulations for SelectUSA. Nevada was there too, and these virtual booths, we never had so many follow-up meetings. So congrats for that. But you didn't mention, and that this is a question for you also, because I know that the biggest obstacle for investors right now from here going to United States. But how you see this process of right now, let's say, negotiations between also EU member states, that there is a chance that starting July 1st, American companies could come freely to European Union and or to most of the countries, because my office is also managing state trade expansion program, and we are receiving a lot of right now questions about this possibility in the fall also to come, and of course not only to come to the country, but also you have one of the excellent services. I'm talking about Gold Key, for example. Do you see that we can start planning something for example, in the fall?
Well, Pavel, first of all, it's good to see you. I didn't know you were going to be here today, and so this is actually a kind of a nice meeting of people that I haven't seen in a long time. Actually, 15 months since we've had really face-to-face meetings. To answer your question, our guidance comes from the White House, and right now the White House has a moratorium on travel from the Schengen zone, so which Poland falls under, as well as most of Europe. So is it premature to get out ahead of the White House and speculate? Yes. Do we see that there's opening for business travel and even tourism travel, as I understand, in the near future? Yes, I think so. But unless we have official guidance on that, that's not something that we can speak about. We are still looking at virtual programs on our calendar through the autumn. This is not a secret. I think people are a little bit leery of committing to an in-person event or an in-person trade mission or trade delegations going in either direction, although the appetite is there. We are constantly receiving emails asking for assistance from U.S. companies, U.S. trade groups. Of course, the American Chamber of Commerce here in Poland is well connected with the embassy and is pushing for the business agenda for its members, which will eventually assist all Polish companies looking or Polish citizens going to the U.S. Later this year. But I do think that travel is going to open up. We just don't have a crystal ball to look at the time frame that the travel to the U.S. will open up, or travel from the U.S. to Poland. Now, I know people are saying July 1st or that. I think that might be a little bit ambitious. Now, I live here in Poland. I'm waiting for the green pass or this application to download so I can upload my own vaccine card information to it and be able to travel freely throughout Europe. But it still hasn't happened yet, and I think there's cooperation that needs to happen with the U.S. government, the EU Commission itself, and then sometimes individual countries. Because while there are a few flights that go back and forth from the United States to Poland, every day or every other day as it is now, the difficulty is, many of the flights to get to certain areas of the country have to be routed through Europe. And for instance, I just flew through Atlanta, Georgia, and again, a nod to Sergio. But my trip through Atlanta, Georgia, back to Poland was routed through Amsterdam, and so I had to be compliant to the Dutch, entry rules, and that's a challenge for us to navigate at this moment.
By the way, Neil, SelectUSA plans for 2022, is that likely to be in June? I know no one knows the answer quite yet, but is it probably going to be in person in DC in June next year?
Well, I would say likely. The funny thing is, Sergio and I had a call on a separate topic last night because we do work very closely together on a variety of issues, and we looked at the SelectUSA website, which is simply selectusa.gov, and there is no mention yet on the SelectUSA 2022 summit. Likely it will be in June. This is the typical protocol, and that's partially because there's a U.S. holiday at the end of May, and it's best to avoid that because it is a vacation time for the U.S. people. So likely it's going to be in June. I would guess early to mid-June. So if you want to block your time on your calendar and think about going to the United States, I would go ahead and do it.
And Sergio, in terms of case, plans for any events for your states vis-a-vis Europe, either physically or online?
I think the second half of this year will be very unique because you start to see the transition to hybrid events like this one and to in-person events like major trade shows. I can tell you that from what I'm hearing on the ground here in Germany, Germany being sort of the world capital of trade shows, the Anuga trade show, food and beverage, is on. Medica, which is the largest life science trade show in the world, is on. The IAA Mobility Show here in September, held in Munich, that's going on. So there's a movement to get people gathered again. As far as travelers coming from the U.S., that's already started and will continue until the end of the year. There's, as Neil pointed out, a big appetite for folks to get on planes and get over here. Everybody's vaccinated. They're wondering why it's taking so long, and so there is an eagerness to get over here and get back to business. As far as events are concerned, absolutely. I must say that the first half of every year is very much focused in supporting SelectUSA's effort to promote the event and to recruit large delegations, simply because every state and case have an interest in ensuring that the SelectUSA is a successful event. It is the United States' premier investment promotion event. And so SelectUSA's success for this event is also our success. So I would say the first 6 months of 2022, you can count on more and frequent in-person engagements. But for the end of the year, I think we're taking it sort of step by step, looking at what's happening on the in-person events. As far as hitting the road and conducting sort of business recruitment missions, those are happening. Those will begin after the summer holiday, end of September, beginning of October, until the end of the year. So expect folks to visit. I could tell you that just 3 weeks ago, the governor of Virginia made a visit to Europe. It was all over the press. The Associated Press reported on this. And he was in Greece, he was in Switzerland, he was in Germany. And so, again, that visit in itself sends a very strong signal to other state economic development organizations that, well, if he did it, why can't we? So expect more to come in the coming months. And Neil, just a heads up, that means more work for you and your staff. All right. Thank you.
Well, I can say also that this event is planned for a side event to SelectUSA. Let me say a non-official side event of SelectUSA, but we plan to piggyback on that the day before, the day after in DC next year for this physical event. Again, non-official, keep us out of trouble here with the U.S. government. So good. Any last comments? Let's go to Canada. And any thoughts about Canadian companies investing here? Other direction? Where do you see the most activity? Is it Toronto? Is it Montreal? How about Vancouver? Any thoughts about that? And then I'll let Neil have the last comments.
Thank you, Tom. I think that, like everyone else, we're trying to get through this period. We've had a lot of successful online events, again regionally with different provinces and Central Europe, and those have been bilateral, very nice events that have been breaking the ice sometimes and trying to do what we cannot do in person. I think that will continue for the foreseeable future, as I think our colleagues here would agree. And in the meantime, we're going to try to work with what we have and develop relationships to those cities that you mentioned, Tom, that they each have their area of specialization in terms of where Polish or Central European companies might want to go and vice versa. We all know that Poland is a good hub for high precision engineering, IT, business services, and many other things. And vice versa, North American destinations and Canadian ones have their areas that are interesting, such as IT and gaming in Vancouver. There's also a lot of innovation and startups in Vancouver and Toronto. And for the French-speaking area, Montreal offers a lot of opportunities. Its proximity, Toronto and Montreal are both very close to United States markets. Of course, that's our most important trading partner, has been forever and probably will continue to be. So I think there's it's obviously challenging right now, but there are opportunities for those who are ready to take. That goes in both directions. I think it's perhaps a little bit easier for Canadian companies to come here at the moment, based on existing supply chain relationships and the perceived and actual advantage that Poland has in some of these areas. But the trade goes both ways. So if existing relationships exist into Canada, I think they will continue to grow and develop. And for new companies, well, they'll have to take their steps in a measured way and try to find the right approach to a very large market.
All right. Well, closing comments. I will just say that Sergio and Pavel, get ready because we have some new blood coming into our office this summer. We have a new commercial specialist with a focus on the SelectUSA program. We have a new commercial officer that I'll be training and getting up to speed on the SelectUSA program. And we have a new commercial assistant who will be supporting the SelectUSA program. So this will all take place in about August of this year. And at that point, we'll start to formulate our plan for outreach. And we're really hoping to do in-person outreach around Poland in 2022, possibly even as early as autumn 2021. And, with that in mind, Sergio mentioned that we did a 5-city roadshow in what was it, 2020, in March of 2020, just before the world shut down, the week before the world shut down. And so in that roadshow, we went from Gdansk to Warsaw to Krakow to Wrocław and then up to Poznan. We'll look to replicate something like that in 2022. And we may actually split that into 2 different weeks, so that way we can hit, maybe the northern part of Poland and then the southern part of Poland, because, there are major cities like Lublin or Rzeszów that need some attention. Of course, Krakow and Wrocław are definitely in our targets, but, we really need to educate people on the program on how to get the resources necessary to invest and to make those sound decisions. So we will be doing something like that. For next year's SelectUSA Summit, crystal ball looking ahead. I do believe that it will be an in-person event, piggybacking on the success of this year's event. I think it can only get bigger and better. People know what it is now. They go there for the resources, for the information, for the one-on-one meetings with the economic development offices, with service providers such as lawyers and accounting firms and even consulting firms that they need in order to make those decisions. Because while the U.S. government is a general source of information and we can give you information into every aspect, there's a limit of what we can do. We cannot provide legal or tax information. So that's something that we'll have. So I'll just close out with, Tom, thanks very much for inviting me here today. I'm happy to provide information. After I provided my email address earlier, I could feel my phone in my pocket. I think it was on perpetual vibrate. So if you didn't catch that earlier, I'll say my email address one more time. It's neil.pickett@trade.gov, and you can just email me directly, and I'll be happy to help you out. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Sergio. Thank you very much for joining us virtually. Thank you guys for joining us here in person. We are going to take a 20-minute coffee break in the back here for those who are here. If you are online, please take a chance to use a one-on-one hop-in networking feature. The 2 ways to do it: you can do the random networking, which is the bottom left part of the hop-in, or you can do the one-on-one direct meeting. So if you want to talk to Neil, if he gets on the mobile app of Hopin, you can catch him as well. But the point is, you can go to someone directly in the platform and ask them for a meeting right now, a one-on-one video meeting, or you can do the random networking tab, which also is kind of interesting to get some new context you might not have come across before. In the meantime, we'll have coffee here. We're 20-minute break, back on at 11:20 here.